Good afternoon, everyone. Delighted to be here today on day 4 of Involvement Week. For people who don't know me, I'm Louise from TPAS. I've got Lisa with me from TPAS, and I'm delighted to have some fantastic presenters with us as well today, because this session I think is going to be a really, really insightful one and interesting one for us all. It's all part of the Involvement for Everyone, sort of the Inclusion and Representation Day that we're running today here at TPAS as part of Involvement Week. And I'm delighted to have with us Stonewall Housing and Jack from Stonewall Housing, who is going to give us a little insight and some information along with 2 other presenters. So welcome to Jude and Jenny as well. They're going to talk to us about the LGBTQ pledge and let us know what that's all about. So I'm going to hand over to Jack now, who's going to take you through the session. If you've got questions, please pop them in the chat. We will deal with those at the end of the presentations, and hopefully there'll be some time for questions as well. But over to yourself, Jack.
Thank you so much. And welcome, everyone. It's so great to see so many faces, some that I do recognize and others that I don't, which is always nice. Hopefully everyone can see the screen okay. Can I get a thumbs up that that's okay? Fab, thanks Louise. So I'm just going to spend the next 10 or 15 minutes or so walking you through the LGBTQ plus housing pledge. And we're going to use this accreditation as a kind of bit of a conduit into conversations around inclusive resident engagement, which is a significant component of the pledge. Just to walk you through who I am. So as Louise introduced, my name's Jack. I use he, him pronouns, and I work full-time as the LGBTQ plus housing pledge coordinator. My employer are Stonewall Housing. Now we're a nationwide LGBTQ plus housing and homelessness charity. We're the biggest of its size. It supports LGBTQ plus people of all ages with housing instability and homelessness. Confusingly as well, we are also a completely different charity to the much better known Stonewall. I'm not bitter, but we've been around 10 years longer than them, and we share a lot of the same name, but we're not linked in any way. They do fantastic work around policy and lobbying politically. We're specifically around that housing and homelessness link. And so we offer a range of frontline and supported services as well. So we have some immediate support for people who can use a live chat function or a helpline if they suddenly find themselves in a situation of housing instability. Maybe they've been kicked out from family members for being LGBTQ+. There's a range of reasons why people might get in touch with us first and foremost. What we often do after reaching out to them originally is signpost people to a range of our advocacy services. So that is tailored support that we offer for individuals who are perhaps escaping domestic abuse. So that can be family abuse from parents or other family members that might be homophobic or transphobic in nature. That can also be domestic abuse fleeing a partner. We have substance misuse services, mental health advocacy, and whilst we originally were set up in and around the London area, we've since expanded to offer a range of services for across the country. And we also have a very limited, I must stress, amount of stock in our supported housing schemes. So we have homes in London boroughs, Brighton and Eastbourne as well. And these offer safe, affirming housing support for LGBTQ plus residents that allows them to rebuild their independence with a dedicated caseworker as well. We, in addition, offer a range of housing advice drop-ins. So we have an in-person drop-in service for over 50s who are LGBTQ plus and have any questions related to their housing. There's specific needs, I think, sometimes for older LGBTQ plus community members, many of whom feel anxious about being reliant on care and what that care would look like as a trans person or a queer person who's aging. So there's a real range of support that we offer. I don't sit within the services team, which means that my support is directly with those housing providers who are signed up to the LGBTQ plus housing pledge. And it's that pledge specifically that I'm going to walk you through in a little bit more detail now. So the pledge grew out of a piece of research called No Place Like Home. So you can see the front of that report, top right of the screen. And that was a piece of research commissioned by Houseproud, the University of Surrey, and it was sponsored by a range of housing providers. It included Genesis before they became Notting Hill Genesis, S&G, Clarion, some of those bigger providers. And it was the first study of its kind that explored the experiences of LGBTQ plus people living in social housing in England and Wales. And unsurprisingly to lots of us, unfortunately, who are working within the sector, it exposed numerous sorts of discrepancies, discriminations, obstacles that this community was facing at a disproportionate rate compared to non-LGBTQ plus people. So amongst the themes that were displayed were issues of hypervigilance. And so by that, we mean people who were particularly on edge, with visitors, for example, visiting their homes. That could be repairs operatives, housing officers, resident involvement teams, for fear of further discrimination from those staff members visiting their homes. And so there was a significant number of people that were interviewed who were regularly modifying their homes to try and conceal their identities. So we had well over a fifth of gay men who responded to the survey, saying that they're regularly removing photographs, flags, books, films, anything that might give away their identity for fear of further discrimination. And of course, we think of homes as, at the very least, somewhere that you can feel safe to be yourself in your own company. And that just wasn't the case for a lot of the people that we surveyed. There was also a real issue of detachment from neighborhoods. So 60% of trans and non-binary respondents, for example, said that they didn't feel like their neighborhood was a safe place to be LGBTQ+. Unfortunately, I think at the rate that the news and the media is going at the moment, that figure risks being higher today. There was also a lack of trust that people would kind of have in their landlords should they report issues of hate crime, discrimination, antisocial behavior that might fall under the bracket of homophobia or transphobia. So it led us to think that there were lots of these issues that weren't necessarily going reported. And so you've got this double-edged sword here where this community is much more likely to experience issues with their housing, but at the same time, they're much less likely to report those issues for further fear of further discrimination as well. So this research itself was what directly led to the formation of the pledge. A series of recommendations were put forward by those residents who we spoke to in the research. One of those recommendations was around increased visibility. So the idea that if staff members were equipped with rainbow lanyards or pronoun badges or little ally pins, whatever that may be, that those tiny visual cues might make not a big difference for anyone who's not LGBTQ+, but for community members themselves, they often notice those things and it can help them feel a little bit safer when people are doing those day-to-day visits. Another recommendation was around training. So the idea that if staff members across a particular social housing provider were maybe equipped with the skills and the knowledge and the language to navigate conversations with LGBTQ plus residents, to know how best to respond if someone discloses that they are from the community, not making assumptions, all of those sorts of things, then that would help those communities feel more supported. And then last but not least, one of the real key recommendations that was put forward was increased provisions to connect LGBTQ plus residents with one another. Now that could be in the form of a more formal scrutiny panel or EDI panel that offers consultation with those housing providers to help to inform those services. But it could also be a really informal peer support group that's open to LGBTQ plus residents as well as allies or have family members of people within the community who might have questions and want to provide that peer support to one another. All of those things, it was thought, would help to minimize those instances of marginalization and isolation, which we noticed in the report. So the pledge, what was originally known as a House Proud Pledge for the first 6 years or so, sort of took all of those recommendations together and put them into this official accreditation that acknowledges the steps that a landlord is taking to better support their LGBTQ plus residents. And so that's exactly what the pledge is set up to do. And in the last, I can't do the math, 6 years or so that it's been around, it's really grown and it's continued to be accessible at the heart. So it focuses on 3 different areas of requirements. The first is around resident input, the second is around visibility, and the third is around training. And it's absolutely engineered to be proportionate, accessible, and achievable according to your organization's own size, your geographical location, how you're structured in your culture, so that we can ensure that we're adding to the work and complementing it rather than replacing your work. So we learn to understand each of the housing providers signed up to the pledge, how you function, what your strengths are and any areas that you've got to improve. And we build on that work as well. So it's a motivator to keep developing further, as well as being an acknowledgement. On that note of accessibility as well, it's completely free at the point of use. So thanks to the generous sponsorship of some individual organisations, it means that it's completely free for any housing provider of any size to sign up It's free to move between the different levels of the accreditation that we have within the scheme. And it is all around being a family that is made up of organizations of all shapes and sizes. So we have housing providers of 100 homes. We also have housing providers of 100,000 and local authorities, charities. And you'll get a little taste for that shortly as well with our two brilliant speakers. But it really is a very diverse kind of supportive community. And LGBTQ plus residents have been at the very heart of this work. So of course it was their voices that contributed to the original research that led to the pledge's formation. We have LGBTQ plus residents of social housing who sit in our advisory panel and oversee that kind of strategic direction of the accreditation, but also the vast majority of our assessment panels each year, and they're the ones who ultimately decide which organisations are meeting that minimum requirement of inclusion. The majority of those assessment panels are also LGBTQ plus residents as well. We've just set up a new resident impact group who are consulted with on a bi-monthly basis across the space of a year. And that's just another avenue for us to ensure that we're always learning from our LGBTQ plus residents. Of course, we couldn't do without our brilliant experts and partners. We kind of refer to all of the organisations that are signed up, our signatories, as partners, because it's such a reciprocal relationship that we have with each of those organisations. But we also consult with other experts within the field. So House Proud are the LGBTQ plus staff network, who led to the formation of the pledge to begin with. Rainbow Roofs are such an incredible resource, and that is specifically a support group by and for LGBTQ plus residents of social housing. They started specifically in the Northwest, and they've since expanded, and I've had their word that they're open to any referrals from residents across the country as well. So going to open the floodgates and encourage referrals from anywhere in the country, because they are such a brilliant resource as well, and just provide that peer support that we know is so important as well. Just to give you a really quick overview of the Pioneer requirements. So the baseline level of accreditation that the pledge offers is Pledge Pioneer. And as I mentioned, it's sectioned into 3 different areas. That first section is around resident input. And so within that section, we're really interested to see evidence of resident groups that are linked to LGBTQ plus inclusion. If you've got a group of allies in your housing provider who are keen to get stuck in on co-producing materials for a Pride event, for example, or placard making workshops, whatever that may be, looping in with allies is just as valuable as looping in with LGBTQ plus community members, because it's those allies who are able to bang the drum and make it okay for other LGBTQ plus residents to disclose. We love to see testimonials from senior staff members, and by that we mean CEOs or directors within an organisation, who can really make clear how and why they're championing LGBTQ plus inclusion. But we're also so keen to see testimonials from LGBTQ plus involved residents as well. So residents who've perhaps first got in touch or got involved within the organisation, not specifically related to their LGBTQ plus identity, but they happen to feel that they happen to be part of the community, and that's their interest. We were also really keen to see any policies, equality impact assessments, action plans that show this real interest in the organisation embedding LGBTQ plus resident voices into different stages of your work. For section 2, and we're not going to focus too much on these sections today because they tend to be more around comms, people, HR, but it's all centered around LGBTQ plus residents first and foremost. So in section 2, we love to see news articles that you've posted in resident newsletters, for example, advertising your sign up to the pledge. We're really keen to see any presentations that you've given externally about the LGBTQ plus housing pledge. If you've included mention of the pledge in staff inductions for incoming staff members within the organisation, so that they're made aware of that work from the very start at that organisation. Events that you've organised, presence at Pride events locally, or even if you've brought Pride events to your housing schemes directly, that's a really nice piece of evidence for the panel to see. Partnership working, I cannot stress enough, it's a basic point, but it really never gets old, because the more organisations and LGBTQ plus charities you can loop into and consult with, the better your work's going to be. You don't have to reinvent the wheel, and there's some amazing organisations out there who are doing the work, and so looping in with them to see about collaborating on a particular event is always a good shout. And those staff initiatives that we spoke about, Rainbow Lanyards, LGBTQ plus staff networks, organising day trips for allies and LGBTQ plus people. I spoke to an organisation the other day who organise queer walking tours twice a year. So they take a staff members and residents along for a joint event, and they look at different parts of London from a queer kind of history lens, which is really nice. And then section 3 as well as training. So making sure that there's some form of LGBTQ plus awareness training available to staff members. Now, we love to see variety there. So knowledge cafes are a really popular initiative. Human libraries are a really effective way of getting the point across. But we also love to see, I struggle with this word, specificity as well. So making sure that it is linked to their LGBTQ plus housing. Pledge Plus is a really exciting level up, I guess. It's the highest level of the accreditation. We're yet to have a single organization achieve Pledge Plus. So the opportunities are endless. I can see Jude and Jenny's eyes widening as well. I know we'll be getting there. But that is a really exciting kind of additional project where you co-produce work with those LGBTQ plus residents on a topic or theme of your choice as well. I was gonna mention some top tips for resident engagement, and I think we've got a lot of examples, but I'm actually going to hold off from this and hand over to Jenny and Jude later to kind of share their real life examples as well. But I just wanted to include this photograph from Providence Row Housing Association, who are one of the providers that we work with. And they thought, rather than attending a local pride in the area, why not bring pride to their housing schemes? And so they organise little activities across different schemes within the central London borough. And this is a photo from one of the events. And I think that's such an effective way, particularly when residents have accessibility issues, mobility issues. Why not bring the Pride events to those schemes where people are living? Just to highlight the growth of the pledge in the last year, which is always a fun graph to look at. So we've more than doubled in size over the last year, which is super exciting. Since that sponsorship scheme and having that full-time post possible, we've really seen what the potentials are within the scheme. And I don't know about everyone else, but I'm not going to stop until we've got every social housing provider signed up. So that's the aim. So watch this space. Just to highlight the kind of support that is available to pledge signatories. So regular one-to-ones with me as a pledge coordinator, where we can action plan any areas of improvement. We can work together on how best to reach some of those aims. We've got a monthly newsletter that's packed with kind of ideas, resources, invitations to other events, which our signatories often have access to, and my ramblings as well. So I tend to try and make it a very human newsletter that is conversational as well. We've got bi-monthly signatory forums where every other month, all of the organisations who are signed up to the pledge are invited to come along, share learnings, hear good practice, hear challenges from other organisations that they've encountered. So it's a really nice, inclusive, supportive space as well. We've just launched Pledge Pals, which is our new buddying system where we can match you with another organisation of a similar size, geographical location. Any signatories have access to reduced rates for Stonewall Housing's training packages, a range of materials, resources, logo packs, toolkits to help guide people's work. And just a reminder that it is completely free of charge as well. There's no hidden costs down the line. And I wanted to finish with a quote from a particular resident who we worked with on the assessment panel. And he said, firstly, I'd like to say that as a gay man, it was an honor and a privilege to be part of such an important standard that housing providers were applying for. Seeing some of the work that they were doing in their organizations was inspiring. And it was a very proud moment to see that LGBTQ plus was as important as other groups within organizations. From taking part in the panel, I read that many housing providers had a customer LGBTQ plus forum, and that my landlord, as much as they're an ally of the LGBTQ plus community, have a staff LGBTQ forum, but there was no such forum for customers. The panel empowered me to approach a staff member who was a contact for the pledge and have a discussion regarding setting up a much needed forum for customers. An initial meeting has now been set up to plan when our inaugural meeting will be with customers. Being part of the pledge assessment panel was one of the most important projects I have been involved in this year. I wouldn't have otherwise approached my housing provider to set up an LGBTQ plus forum, which will be a safe place where customers can talk freely about things that affect their daily lives. I've developed my volunteering work in the LGBTQ plus field and have made contacts around the country because of this vital project. So I wanted to leave with that very positive quote. What I'm going to do now is stop sharing my screen and hand over to the brilliant Jenny, who is going to share some examples of resident engagement and what that has looked like on CHP's pledge journey. Thank you so much for listening.
Thanks, Jack. I'm going to have a go now at sharing my screen, so bear with me a second while I get it up. Maybe not as professionally and smoothly as you. Bear with me. Okay, let me give that. Right, can you give me a thumbs up if you can see it all right? Yep, okay, so hi everybody. I'm from CHP, which is a medium-sized housing association based in Essex. So Jack asked me to come along today to talk about our recent work towards our LGBT housing pledge pioneer status, and in particular to talk about our customer engagement work that we've been doing. So seeing as I'm at a TPAS event, I thought the best place to start is our customer engagement structure, to put a bit of so you understand a bit more where we're starting from. So this was redesigned almost 2 years ago. When we did that, our priority was ensuring that our customer voice was heard at board level. Our customers and teams worked together to co-design this new community voice structure, which is enshrined in our rules. The outcome of this work was the creation of 3 new customer groups shown in the bottom blue boxes. These are the customer review panel with a focus on scrutiny, our community and communications group, and our diversity, equity and inclusion group. So the chairs from each of these groups sits on our customer experience committee, which is a subcommittee of the board. So what that ensures is that the customer voice on this really important topic is heard right up at the board level. So what you can see here is a line from the group's terms of the DEI group's terms of reference. So their job is to assess the effectiveness of diversity, equity and inclusion policies and activity, and assure that a broad, diverse range of customer views and opinions are included in our policies, procedures and activities. So their terms of reference does cover all protected characteristics, but this year we've had some meetings with a specific focus on LGBTQ inclusion, working towards our pledge and listening importantly to customers. So I've attended the group several times and have carried out some LGBTQ inclusion training with them. This is something that's available to all of our customers. But what we did with this group was step through it together and used it as a conversation starter to be able to talk about their own experiences and what it might mean for our customers and the work that we do. So it looks a little bit blurry actually, but you can see on the screen there are specific subsets within it. So it talks about terminology, but it also talks about LGBTQ inclusion in the workplace, but also what it means to our customers. So focusing on that research that Jack described in his introduction and the important findings from that. So the group discussed how they might want to explore this topic further. So some members had already attended Essex Pride the previous year in 2024, but had decided they were keen to have a more engaged purpose in our event at 2025 and to learn from our customers and communities. So here you can see some photos. The first is from 2024, the second from 2025. As you can see, we were blessed to have beautiful sunny days for both, which was helpful. So we had stands both years. This year, our stand was really nicely next to other local housing associations, Eastlight and Moat. Our DEI resident group members sat on the stand alongside our employees, employee volunteers, and spoke to members of the community and our customers who attended about their experiences, wanting to learn from these and consider how they can use that in the group's work. So we asked attendees to answer a question about how we can better support LGBTQ plus communities to access safe and affordable housing. On this slide, what you can see on this slide was the backdrop to our stand, and each of the little hearts was the answer that somebody gave. We recognised how beneficial this was, wanted to build on this, and since then have carried out an online survey with our customers asking the same question. We also shared the opportunity to provide answers to our employee base, knowing obviously they have their own experiences of working with customers, talking to them all the time about their experiences and how we can improve. So the next task this month and next is working with our DEI customer group, as well as our employee EDI workplace champions, and specifically our CH Pride employee group, to theme responses and identify further actions we want to take to improve this area, learning from feedback. And we can use that to inform what work the groups are doing and focusing on in 2026 and beyond. I think what's worked particularly well, as Jack described as an important part of the pledge, has been support from our leadership team. So the first photo you can see on the left is me with our CEO and Deputy CEO, both of whom not just attended Essex Pride celebrations, but came with their families, helped us set up, and were right there to the bitter end. So we're a really active part of it. They worked on the stand alongside our engaged customers and our employee volunteers both years. I feel that's really emphasised the importance that we're placing and our leadership is placing on LGBTQ plus inclusion, and also the value of customer engagement and doing this together, all being part of this. So the middle photo shows our Deputy CEO, Rachel, with one of our engaged customers. And the final photo is of Rachel at one of our all-employee team catch-ups from earlier this year. So Rachel is chair of our EDI steering group. So it's nice because we can feed the information we're getting really through to our leadership team directly, and giving the opportunity to embed inclusion in the culture, listening to the customer voice. So Pride and our work with engaged community voices are just two examples of the work that we included in our submission. I'm afraid it's a little bit blurry, but we've done a number of other initiatives and events to support LGBTQ inclusion. So as you would have seen in a previous slide, let me pop it back actually, and I couldn't get it to work today on Zoom, so I do apologise, but we have a Teams background. So this started off to support LGBT History Month last year in 2024, but we found people were wanting to use it for the whole year round. So our brilliant communications team developed a background that all employees can use if they choose to. It's really helpful for things like an all-employee event, as you can see Rachel here doing, but also we can use it for customer consultation events if we had a complaint panel. So it's just like Jack said, these visible support that we can provide through doing things like this. We have a background as well, regularly changing to our intranet. Our logo has changed for key inclusion months. You can see the largest photo on here, the slightly blurry one. We've had a bake sale with funds going to a local LGBTQ plus charity that some of our employees are actively involved in their spare time. And that was an employee-led thing, which was great, that we've got employees kind of motivated and wanting to be involved. We've had this photo at the top shows we've got lanyards, we have pronoun badges, we have even tote bags as well, which we've shared at Pride events, but that we've also shared with employees. So people have, as I can see Jude's got on right now, we have employees many employees around the business have chosen to wear the rainbow lanyard rather than the standard CHP one, just went out in communities talking to our customers or around the office. One thing that the judges particularly liked was our bookcase. So we have a bookcase, we've added a bookcase to our reception area that's accessed by our customers and by our employees. And it has a library of LGBTQ themed books, which customers and employees are all encouraged to borrow. So we will have specific focuses for different months, but there's always a mixture of books, a diverse range of books that people can choose from. In fact, I went to do an inventory of it the other day to see how we were getting on, and most had gone missing, which is, at first I was like, oh dear, and then thought, no, this is brilliant. This is exactly what we want, is for these books to be used and borrowed and circulated and recommended. So that's really good. We've changed our HR system, so all employees can easily put their pronouns on their email signature. So that happens directly through the HR system and feeds into other places as well. So again, helping to circulate that and helping people and we've done a lot of work to help people understand the importance of this. We've celebrated lots of events throughout the year. We regularly have articles, stories, experiences, learning that we're sharing throughout lots of channels of work and communications, which is great. We put a lot on social media as well about the priority we place on inclusion, which has had some good outcomes. For example, our recent LGBTQ plus pledge pioneer event status was shared on our Facebook page, and a customer has commented saying that they were a gay man and were keen to get involved in our engaged customer group on the basis of seeing that post. So again, our engagement team are working with that person now to be able to identify what they're interested in and how they might like to be involved. So again, a really nice kind of that, you know, we started doing this to improve our work, and nice to get some really positive outcomes. Our future is going to focus on translating results from our customer survey into outcomes, working with our engaged customers and working with our employee teams. We want to, you know, we know we're not finished. We've got lots of ideas, and we're just keen to keep moving forward into 2026, maybe getting the much in demand additional status Jack. Now I know about that, so I'll stop sharing if you bear with me. Hopefully that's worked, and I can hand you back over to Jack.
Thank you so much, Jenny, and so many brilliant examples of good practice there, and just love the fact that you kind of co-produced that LGBTQ awareness training with those customers directly. I think that really stands out as well. And we'll always be talking about the bookshelf too. I think it's such a great initiative. Jude, over to you.
Hello everyone, lovely to meet you all. I'm just going to have a go at sharing my slides. Do let me know if you can see that. We've got some thumbs up there. Fantastic. Hi everyone, lovely to be here. My name's Jude Layton, and I'm the head of housing at United St Saviour's Charity, and my pronouns are she, her. I want to talk to you a little bit about our pledge journey and some of the work that we're doing at United St Saviour's. Before I do that, I thought it'd be quite useful just to tell you a little bit about who we are, because we are a registered provider of social housing, but we're not a housing association. United St Saviour's Charity is actually an almshouse charity, and we were founded in 1541, so we've been around quite a while. We've only got 138 homes, and they're all for people from the London Borough of Southwark. Most of our residents are over 65, the majority. We've just built a new almshouse. It was actually finished in 2003, called Appleby Blue, and we're extremely proud of it. And I'm not going to keep going on about this, but we did recently, or Appleby Blue won the Reba Sterling Prize for Architecture. So that's kind of something that we're very proud of. But we're a very historic organisation. As I said, we've been around for 500 years, but we pride ourselves in managing our homes in a modern and forward-thinking way. So if I can just quickly show you our 4 almshouses where our 138 homes are. Top left-hand corner there is Appleby Blue, that's in Bermondsey. Top right-hand corner is Hopton's Gardens almshouses. There's only 20 homes there. They're actually located right behind the Tate Modern, so they're very close to Blackfriars Station. And they're a little tiny pocket of a sort of oasis in the middle of the big city there. You can see the high rise all around, but we've got 20 affordable homes for older people from Southwark there, so they're lovely. In the bottom left-hand corner, it's actually out of the borough, but we do have a block in called St Saviour's Court, which is in Purley. So that's located in the London Borough of Croydon, but that is still homes for people from Southwark. So we provide homes for people that choose to move out of the borough. And then the last 7 cottages in the bottom right, they're Helen Peel Memorial Almshouses. They're in Rotherhithe, and we just took those over last year, but there's only 7 homes there. So we're very different. All the homes are different, but we try and provide really consistent resident support services across all the almshouses. I'm going to go on a little bit about Appleby Blue. I'm sorry, but we're so proud of our Sterling Prize. One of the things that the Reba judges said when they came to Appleby, which was sort of earlier this year, was that they just could feel it. They could feel, because not only is it a beautiful building, but it's beautifully designed in a way that really allows people to be included and enjoy their lives. So one of their comments was, this is a building born of deep concern for how to grow older gracefully in a supportive community where every move in the design has been made to improve the quality of residents' lives. Now, I like to think that part of that as well relates to the way in which we manage our homes, the way in which we tailor our services to meet the individual needs of our residents, and that includes being as inclusive as we can possibly be. So moving on. I was going to just talk a bit about the pledge, but Jack and Jenny have covered that really well. So we were delighted to join the House Proud Pledge about a year and a half ago now. We previously had applied for an accreditation called Pride in Care, which was being run by Opening Doors London. There may be people that know Opening Doors London. Unfortunately, that organisation is no longer running, and so we then needed to look around for a suitable accreditation to sort of help us tailor our LGBTQ plus inclusion work. And actually, the Housing Pledge is much better than Pride in Care, because the Pride in Care was kind of quite tailored for care homes, even though it was suitable for older people, whereas the Housing Pledge is absolutely ideal. So if you are a housing provider, and I don't think it matters what size you are, the Housing Pledge will really help you to focus on ways in which you're including your LGBTQ plus community and your allies, and involving people in your diversity and inclusion work generally. So as I said, inclusion's a key strand in our strategic plan. We want to be truly inclusive, and we want to create those environments in all our almshouses. I mentioned we were previously with Opening Doors London. We wanted a framework that was more suited to housing providers. We made the pledge in June 2024. We were delighted to achieve our pioneer status in May was it May, Jack? May 2025. But onwards and upwards, because we want to do more. So how did we make this standard? Well, the way that we set up our work has been, by involving our residents. We said that we would set up a group called the Rainbow Club, because we wanted people to be involved and be interested and look for something that they thought would be fun to be involved with. So we launched the Rainbow Club. We named our champions. So we have a resident champion, who's one of our residents from Hopton's Gardens. We've got a trustee champion, and that's Ben on the left-hand side there, cutting the cake. And he's actually our chair of trustees as well. And then we've got a staff champion, and that's Alessandro, and he's in the room, and I want him to wave. Wave, Alessandro. I can't see you, but hopefully you're there waving away. Alessandro's our staff champion, and he and I together have really worked together to drive this program. Training was absolutely key, and we've sourced some brilliant training for our staff, which has really helped people to start thinking about the pledge status and the kinds of things that we should be doing as a staff team to ensure we're meeting those expectations. Visibility is really big. We mentioned about the lanyards and the rainbows, but we make sure that all of our offices have a lot of visibility to encourage inclusion. And we found that has been really, really useful, because working with older people, we know that a lot of older people potentially go back into the closet when they move into an older person's housing setting, or they have never actually come out. Now, we have had some really great examples of older people who have spent their life not feeling able to be open about their sexuality, and then because of our visibility have come forward and said, we'd love to join the Rainbow Club, we want to be involved with this project, which is really, really heartwarming. We've reviewed our policies and procedures, so we've done lots of work around making sure that all of the, particularly our resident and our housing policies, are all as inclusive as they can be, and that we're recognising areas where we want to make sure that we are clear about inclusion of our LGBTQ plus community. But most excitingly, we then planned a series of events, because the Rainbow Club is all about having fun and events. So we had a launch of our Rainbow Club back in February. We held it at Appleby because we love it at Appleby, and that's a little picture of us there in the top left-hand corner. And we did it by a panel discussion. We invited all of our residents, lots of people came from the community and allies. We invited expert speakers to come, and we just had a discussion group, which people really enjoyed. People asked lots of questions. People got really involved and spoke a lot about the things that were important to them. So, you know, that went really well. Dr. Terry, who's the second picture on your left there, Terry is our LGBTQ plus resident champion. He was on the panel, and he brought a huge amount of lived experience to the panel and was able to talk about some of the things that had happened to him through his life, including needing to be moved because of homophobic abuse in one of the homes that he'd lived in before. So, you know, this really, you know, brought home some of the issues that are faced by people in this community. But we love to celebrate, so we got the most enormous rainbow cake we could find. You can see it there. We actually had to get a YouTube video to find out how to cut it because it was so enormous. So that was really great fun, and that was our launch. We did that in February this year. So we run lots of different events. One of the things that we love doing at United St Saviour's is we love to host the Posh Club. Some of you might have heard of Posh Club. They operate all around London. I think they work in Brighton as well and in other parts of the country. But the Posh Club, they kind of run daytime discos, but they're very inclusive. They're for older people. They're very community focused. Quite risque at times. If I tell you, the residents love the Posh Club. We usually host them twice a year. We sell out overnight because everybody wants to be there. There's just lots and lots of fun happening. So that's that's part of the celebration, one of the events that we do. But we've also done some other things. We have done sort of some film clubs and just sort of some discussion groups, some lower level stuff for people that don't quite want to go out there and dance on the stage. So I've mentioned already, yeah, the Posh Club's an intergenerational club for older people featuring, usually there's cabarets, sometimes there's strippers. People absolutely love it, but often there's a nice afternoon tea. It absolutely helps to reduce isolation. We are very keen that the older people that we are working with are not socially isolated. So we run a lot of resident activities, both resident-led and activities with the wider community, and things like the Posh Club do a great job at bringing people in and helping people not to feel lonely and to feel involved. Then come Pride this summer, we were really lucky. We had the opportunity to do an event again at Appleby, and it was called the Pride Panto. This was a pantomime that had been performed earlier in the year by an amateur dramatic group, and we were able to source funding from Southwark Council, which I was absolutely delighted about. So it was fully funded. We were able to pay the company to come in and perform their Pride Panto. So it was the middle of June, which is a funny month for pantomime, but it was a very inclusive event. And when I say inclusive, I mean suitable for all the family, lots of fun. So we invited, it was suitable for children, but it kind of in a very gentle way just introduced some of the themes of prejudice. The story was around Prince Charming, who really needed an heir to the throne, but his mother was trying to set him up with all these terrible princesses. But Prince Charming was gay, and he just needed to, be gay, and he needed everybody to know that. So he ended up adopting some children, and it was just an absolute delight. So we loved being involved with the Pride Panto back in June. And here's some of the pictures of us at Pride Panto. It was lots of fun. And if you see in that bottom right-hand corner, what was so lovely was that these people here are mostly our residents from Appleby, and they completely embraced it. They did all the organisation, they did the teas, they set up the stage, they sold the tickets. So we had lots and lots of fun, and people were really involved. We did also do some external collaborations. One of the external organisations we've been working with are the University of Surrey, and they asked us to join them in a project called the Lifehouse project, which was the creation of an animation to provide training around older LGBTQ plus people and how to provide care and support for them. So we nominated some residents to get involved in creating the animation, and then once it was produced, we then used that as a training tool for our own staff. So we delivered the Lifehouse project animation back in September this year. It's currently being evaluated. Surrey are trying to get some funding to develop it further. It's a great little training tool. It's a short animation, but it's actually very powerful, quite moving, really helps you to understand as a provider some of the issues that your residents might face, particularly your trans residents, and you sort of introducing topics that, to be fair, you may not have thought about before when you're providing housing services. So I would strongly recommend that you look out for the Lifehouse project if you're a housing provider, and pick up on their training, because I think you will find it very useful to roll it out to your staff. So what do we want to do next? Well, we're sort of conscious that the work we've done so far has been involving everybody, particularly involving our the whole community and a lot of allies. We're conscious that we want to create some dedicated spaces for members of the LGBTQ plus community. So we will do some groups which are where those members of our community can just come along and feel comfortable to speak openly and sort of have a small discussion group there. But that will be for us a fairly small group of people, but we will be providing those spaces. We'll continue to do our intergenerational work, but one of the things that struck me early on when we started to talk to residents about the Rainbow Club was that lots of people said things like, I'm straight myself, but my grandchildren are gay or trans, and I would love to understand more about that. I want to help them. I want to know more about about their children or their grandchildren. So it seemed that there was a bit of an appetite for maybe a grandparents club. So we're gonna look at sort of running some workshops that will help people to support members of their family or their friends or their neighbours who are LGBTQ plus. Because, you know, there was a real lovely warmth from allies that wanted to understand more and to show the ways in which they could be more supportive. So that was great. We will continue to have fun and engage our residents. My dream is to have a float at Pride one year. Whether I'll be able to do that next year, I don't know. But one year I'd like to have a float at Pride. And we'll continue to expand our partnerships, because the work with Surrey has been invaluable, and that's opened doors for us to work with other organisations who can share their best practice. So just finishing on a quote like Jack did. One of our residents came forward and after we launched the Rainbow Club, and he said to us, I've been a resident with United St Saviour's for over 10 years now, and the management's commitment to LGBTQ plus rights and issues has been exemplary. This culminated in the successful launch of the Rainbow Club, which provided a warm welcome to all with an interest, and especially supports the welfare of our LGBTQ plus residents. So we were really, really happy to get that feedback. So thank you. I don't know if Jack's going to go over to questions, but I'm going to end my presentation there. Thank you everyone for listening.
Thank you so much, Jude. And just like Jenny's presentation, there's so many incredible examples of good practice there. Love the pantomime. You conveniently left out the photos of you, Jude, from that, which is a...
There were a few there for the you know, eagle-eyed.
But no, there's such brilliant examples of how to keep that resident engagement fun and entertaining and joyful as well. So it's a celebration of LGBTQ plus lives, and love the intergenerational work as well. Louise, is it okay if I go ahead to questions? Does that work? Because I can see that Rob, you've got your hand up as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Go for it.
Fab. Over to you, Rob.
Okay, so I'm going to try and keep it together because I just got very emotional listening to all three of you. So, as a gay man approaching 60, that bit about going back in the closet hit really hard because I've been living in my flat now for 7 years and never once to any of my neighbours or anybody at the housing association have I shared my sexuality. And the thing that I think I don't know, maybe everyone listening in knows this, but when you get to my age, you start worrying about where am I going to be in 10 years' time? Because we've had so many examples of homophobic abuse in old people's homes. I don't know, sorry, no, I know there was a big deal made out of the fact that in London they opened a gay, basically an LGBTQ home for old people. But I'm out in the provinces. There is nowhere for me to go that feels safe. I mean, the other part was you were talking about people coming into the home, and I had to have work done in my flat to make it accessible. And the night before they arrived, I ran around to make sure there was nothing in the flat that would, because I didn't know who these people were and how they would respond. And so just thank you for your work. Oh God. I signed up for this because I was just really excited to see that this type of work was being done. I didn't expect to end up as a blubbering mess. So just, guy, who are running these associations, there are lots of people like me sitting out there in flats who feel isolated and really worried about what the next steps are. And at the other end of the age thing, we've got people, LGBT young people, who are unable to get into housing. Because I'll tell you, when I was homeless, they tried to put me in a house of multiple occupancy. And when I was walking around, somebody went, "Oh, there's another faggot." But when I said that to the housing officer, they didn't think it was a problem. It would all sort itself out when you moved in. So thank you for your work.
Oh, thank you, Rob. And you've just touched on so many incredible points there. Firstly, thank you so much for sharing that. I know that that's a big part of the story, is being able to speak about your situation, particularly a room full of people online as well. That can make it even more daunting. So thank you so much for sharing your situation with us. And you've raised so much of the issues, you know, that it reminds us that behind every statistic that we talk about in our work, there's real human lives affected. You've touched on the importance of community, you know, looping in with other LGBTQ plus people who are older and have got that shared experience. You've also touched on the very issues that were raised within that research as well. I would really recommend, Rob, you reaching out to someone from Stonewall Housing if you ever want to talk to another LGBT person about your situation, whether that's current or historic. Housing instability has an ongoing impact on us, doesn't it? And so do know that there's always those avenues to go down. I'm equally so happy to have a one-to-one conversation with you and loop you in with other services. And that's why the importance of Rainbow Roof, you know, Jed and other incredible residents who've made that group so important. I know that they would always welcome you with open arms as well. So looping into those services, I think, is really helpful. But we welcome emotion in these places, particularly when we're talking about human lives, you know, that's inherently emotional. So Thank you for sharing that with us today.
Yeah, and I just wanted to
touch.
add one other thing that I don't think ever gets considered, is that my generation of gay men who sort of came of age in the 80s were bombarded by the gay plague, the moral panic, Clause 28. We find it very difficult to actually even ask, because by identifying yourself, you don't know if it's going to change again. And when we see the anti-woke, anti-DEI stuff, what we remember is how when we were at school, it started there and ended with Clause 28. And I know it sounds like, oh, yeah, but it's a real thing for us. It's a trauma that happened, and we seem to have forgotten it happened.
Yeah.
Because we got treatment, we got gay marriage, we got that equality, we got human rights legislation, but you still left a generation who are quaking in their boots about what could happen. Sorry, I'll shut up now.
Absolutely. No, I completely agree, Rob. And I can see that James as well has got his hand up. I don't know if you wanted to contribute here, James.
Yes, I went through the same thing. I lost mates who died of AIDS. I went through it, beaten up, spattered, even brothers. One brother even knocked me out once for it, you know. He became a vicar, a deacon, actually. But the fact is, it's how it was. For me, I'm not quite the same ilk in favour of the flags and all, you know, this kind of community thing, because I can remember what it was like. I've had it where you've had good straight friends, and the first thing they say when you fall out is, you know, and that's what you get. It's the first thing they say. Everybody wants to be your friend. Everybody. I've seen it where there's the expression the fag hags with all the girls hanging around them, and it becomes fashionable and this, that, and the other. So my own experience, I've had the muggings, like you say, the batterings. We used to go in Manchester and over to Liverpool and all the rest of it. But the other side of it is when you get mud slung at the door and at the window, and you get lads who flashing that as a joke, because they're only growing up. They're only, you know, like 16, 17, sort of thing, 15 and that. But had I experienced this, the next thing is the police came to the door. I was at a friend's house with my partner at the time. Came to the door, knocked on the door, said, "Why haven't you reported this?" One of our other friends reported it. So we told them, you know what they did? Got the lads out of bed in the middle of the night to come down to our house, the police did, and clean all the mud off the windows. Those lads, by the way, turned out to be gay themselves later. So really, I think it was just a way of getting attraction and, you know, making first sort of moves. But the work you're doing, I can see it's got a place, but it's just the fact that the idea of flag wave, you know, for me, that's the thing I don't like. Most ordinary gay people living on the stage can't behave like that, don't behave like that. We would go to Manchester and Liverpool rather than drink locally because we felt safer. But then you found you waiting at train stations with gangs of lads on the lines who may recognise you after a while, by association. So all of that went on. And I think the thing is now, because it's become so prevalent and so many people are saying, oh, I'm gay, I'm this and that. When it comes down to it, this idea of wanting to hold hands in the streets and that, this is going to have a knock-on effect, I think. It's building up out of steam again now. And it will do because it comes in cycles. It won't be long before I think we're going to be hitting that bench sort of mark again, you know, of intolerance. And I think in many ways, sadly, it has been brought on because a lot of the people advertising, you know, and professing to be gay friendly and gay tolerant, waving the flags, for me, are the ones who desert the ship quickest when things go to the wall. You saw that with the music business with the likes of Elton John going away when it was gay, Tom Robinson, all of these left. But as soon as it was all right, said it wasn't just gay people who got AIDS. They did a fantastic job coming back, and you could understand why they dissed themselves, got married and things like that. But at the time, you were abandoned. You felt like there was going to be an iceberg drop on your head at any minute. Because that was what the government message was, this big, huge iceberg. You'd go to work and you'd be thinking, gosh, and you couldn't talk to family or anything because you were so isolated, exactly like Rob says. And it does affect you. So I think it's great that people are willing to listen now and say, yes, you know, listen to this right and that right. But I think especially now with for-profit housing coming in and for-profit investments, all the good work the likes of TPAS and that are doing, we may find we'll slide. That's my only worry. We need to keep an eye on what's happening in the sector and what's ahead of us.
So many brilliant points raised there, James. And I feel like there's definitely a need for more conversations about this. You know, hopefully this is the first of many, because that's what this has demonstrated. And you raised so many good points. You know, it has to be more than flag waving. I think we talk about all of these different approaches, but they can't exist in isolation from one another. And we have to avoid it becoming this box ticking exercise. I think we talk a lot about that internally with the pledge, so that it's around meaningful change. And it is about equipping all of the staff members across an organization with that awareness as well, because there's no point in waving a flag as an organization and then having a staff member who makes an inappropriate comment that goes unchecked. You know, all of this is all part of a bigger process, and it has to go beyond that symbolism. You know, the risk of pink washing. You maybe change your logo 1 month of every year and then go back to the way that things are. It
That's
has
why I
to
don't
be
like
that
Peter
meaningful
Tatchell.
work.
That's why I don't have favour for Peter Tatchell. But my own partner died 5 years ago, fell out in the bathroom, ripped through his lung. He turned to the drink. You know, that was the sort of support that he went through. But you live with it, you move on, and you just keep going with your head down. But I think it's very difficult, and it's a difficult thing to do. But I think more and more people now, unless you're living in gated communities and you live in leafy suburbs and you can jump on a train and go home and safely or get in the car, it's great. The celebrities on telly, you see them all, Graham Norton, all of them waving the flags and telling all the secrets of the gay community, you know, all about everything. But then they go home into safety. And then what they've done is put the back of society, the people in society's backs up then, because they will see it as humorous, but then they'll see it the other side.
Sure.
That's all
No,
really.
absolutely. No, thank you so much for sharing as well. I'm really aware of time, and what I want to say is that Louise and Lisa, if I can send over my email so that you can share that out with everyone, and let's please keep the conversations going, because these insights are so invaluable and they make it relevant, and they bring that human perspective that shows just why this work is so important. Whatever community we're talking about, if it's marginalized, there's still so much work to be done. I'm going to hand over to you, Louise, to wrap up, but I just want to thank you all so much for sharing, and I could keep talking for hours about this, but thank you so much. Oh, you're muted, Louise.
Thank you to Jack. Thank you, Jack, should I say, and also to Jude and Jenny as well. I think you're right about this conversation needing to carry on, and us needing to make sure we're creating more of these spaces for us all to get together to discuss such a very important issue when we're talking about inclusion across tenant engagement and housing. So a big thank you to all three of you. I have really enjoyed it, and I know there's been lots and lots of really interesting and insightful things that people will be able to take away with them and hopefully put into practice, and also see whether they can look at getting the pledge brought into organisations to make some of the differences that have been talked about today. I also just want to say a big thank you for everyone coming along today, and also for people who took the brave step to share their thoughts and stories today. I think that's been really I think eye-opening for some of us, and really got us to think even more acutely about some of the things we can do to help and support all communities that feel in some way that their voice is not being heard. So thank you to you all. Promise we will do more in this space, absolutely. And hopefully some of you may be joining us tomorrow as part of our last day of involvement week to find out a little bit more about some other good practice that's going off. But we've heard some fantastic stuff today. So thank you ever so much, everyone, for being with us today. The slides will be available on the website, and we will make sure Jack has circulated his email, so we will make sure that we get that out to people as well. So thank you, everyone. Enjoy the rest of your day and look after yourselves, and hopefully we'll see you again soon. So big thank you. Bye,
Thanks
everyone.
so much, Louise. Take care, everyone. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.